Alrighty, lesson 9-2 homework trigonometry. It says express each ratio as a fraction and as a decimal to the nearest hundredth. So you're gonna express each ratio as a fraction and also as a decimal to the nearest hundredths. So let's go ahead and take a look at number 1. It says sine of A. So you know for sure if I look at A over here, this is what we call the angle of reference. So that is the angle of reference. So if I look at my figure, where's A? A is right here. So let's label the figure. So across from A, this is the opposite side. Across from the 90-degree angle, this is the hypotenuse. And then next to, this is adjacent. So I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA, so I see the letter S, so that means I'm going to be using so, which means sine of X is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, right? So let's go ahead, I'm going to erase this now. So if I'm talking about sine of A, that is opposite over hypotenuse, which is equal to 16. So O is 16 because it's the opposite side, and then H is 12 because that's the, or sorry, not 12. So O is 16 and H is 20. That's the hypotenuse. So I write 16 over 20. And you need to make sure that you simplify your fraction. So I write 16 divided by 20. I press enter. You should get a decimal. I'm going to press math, enter, enter. So now this is simplified. So it's 4 over 5 or 0.8. Because we need to express this as a fraction and decimal. And make sure that you round your decimal to the nearest hundredth, okay? All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at, let me see. I'm going to go check the key real fast. Let's figure out if there's one where you have to round. Let's take a look at number 4. So I can easily erase this, right, with my app. But with y'all's paper, since it's a physical paper, I would just redraw the figure. Because now, actually, no. Never mind. Why? Because we're still dealing with tangent of A. All right, let's do tangent of A, and then I'm going to get to my point about, drawing the figure. So tangent of A, so we have T, that's TOA, and remember, that's tangent of, X equals opposite over adjacent. So I write O over A, which is equal to 16 over 12. So again, I'm going to use my calculator. I'm going to write 16 over 12. I hit enter. Okay, well, what is that as a simplified fraction? So I press, there's an add. Let me get rid of that. All right, there we go. So I'm going to try that again. Press math, enter, enter. And that 16 over 12 now becomes 4/3. And 4/3 is your simplified fraction. Okay? So that is approximately, if I have to round to the nearest hundredths, that's 1.33. So tangent of A is 4/3, which is approximately 1.33. Okay, now let's look at number 6 here. I have sine of C. So we use this figure to look at angle A. But now what I want to do is, since I'm not using A over here, I'm using C, because C is my, angle of reference. So angle of reference is my new one here. This C here is my new one. I got to redraw the figure, because I got to relabel, because this is, again, my angle of reference, right? So I have A, C, B. This is 20. That's a 90-degree angle. That's 12. That's 16. I'm just redrawing the figure. Now, I'm going to use a different color pen now. C is now my angle of reference, so that means that 12 is the opposite side, 16 is the adjacent side, and 20 is still the hypotenuse because it's across from the 90-degree angle, right? And because I'm dealing with sine, that means I'm using SO, which is opposites over hypotenuse. So sine of C is equal to O over H. O is 12 and H is 20. So I write 12 divided by 20. I hit enter. Okay, cool. Press math. Enter, enter. That's 3/5. Okay, so that is reduce. So that is 0.6 as a decimal. Okay? So that's how you approach these problems. All right, this is pretty much crowded. So I'm gonna erase some stuff and take a look at number 7 here. Okay, I got asked a lot of questions about 7 and all of this, okay? So for 7 and what I just showed you over here, you need to use your special right triangles, okay? That means if you have your reference sheet that I gave you in class, definitely take a look at that. You're using special right triangles. Remember, we're dealing with 30, 60, 90 here, 45, 45, 90. So let me go ahead and draw both triangles. So this is 30, 60, 90, and this is 45, 45, 90. So 30, 60, this is 45, 45, and across from 30 degrees, we label this side A. Across from 60 degrees, this is A root 3, and across from 90 degrees, that is 2A. Across from 45 degrees, this is A. Across from 45 degrees here, that is A. And this is A root 2. Now, it says, use a special right triangle to express sine of 60. Sine of 60 as a fraction and as a decimal to the nearest hundredths. So, which one do I use? Which triangle do I use? Do I use the 30, 60, 90 or 45, 45, 90? Well, since you're talking about 60 here, look at this triangle. It doesn't have an angle where it's 60 degrees, right? So I'm not using this special right triangle at all. I'm using this triangle because it's the 30, 60, 90 triangle, right? So, great, I have sine of 60. I have sine of 60, where 60 is the angle of reference. So if 60 is the angle of reference, I'm going to go find my 30, 60, 90 triangle. I'm going to find 60, and I'm going to circle that because, again, that's my angle of reference. So let's label the figure. Across from 60 degrees, this side here is my opposite side. Across from 90 degrees, this side is my hypotenuse. Across from 30 degrees, this here... Oh, no, sorry. Across from 60 degrees, this side is my adjacent side. Okay, 60 is your angle of reference. You have SOHCAHTOA as your best friend. And since we're dealing with the sine function, we're going to use SO, which means sine of x is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. So I equal that to, what's the opposite side? Well, it's a root 3. And then what is the hypotenuse? That's 2a. Okay? So you have a root 3 over 2a. Now, if we look at the top and bottom, first of all, you cannot leave a root 3 over 2a as your answer because it's not simplified. Why? Because they both have an a. So I have to cancel those two a's. So what are you left with? Root 3 over 2. It's kind of like saying 5 over 5 times 2, right? Which, if you look at it, it's 5 over 10, which simplifies to 1/2. They both have a 5, so I cancel that out, that's 1/2. That's the same idea when dealing with this. So what does that mean? Sine of 60 is equal to root 3 over 2. Okay, let's look at... what should we look at? Okay, let's take a look at number 9. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write SOHCAHTOA. 61 is my angle of reference. I'm going to circle that, and then I'm going to start labeling my figure. So this is the opposite side. This is the hypotenuse, and then this is my adjacent side. The given values are x and 24. So we're dealing with op and hype. Which one do we use? Which trig function has opposites and hypotenuse? That would be so, right? So that would be so. So I write sine of your angle of reference, which is 61. It equals to your opposite over hypotenuse. That's 24 over x. What I'm going to do is, since x is in the denominator, I'm going to swap the sine of 61 and x, the positioning of those two. I'm going to swap them. So I should get x equals 24 over sine of 61. I can't leave my answer like that. So I'm going to get my calculator. And I'm going to clear the memory of it first. 2 plus 7, 1, 2. So first thing that you need to do, you need to make sure your calculator mode is in degree. So make sure you do that first. So it's highlighting radian. Don't let that happen. Arrow to the right, press enter, and then press second mode so you're out of that screen. Now, x is equal to 24 divided by sine of 61. That's approximately 27 point, what am I rounding to? To the nearest hundredth. So the second 4 after the decimal, that's the hundredths place. So that 0 dictates that 4, but since it's below 5, 0 is below 5, you don't round that 4. So your answer is 27.44. Okay. 12 to 14. Use a calculator to find the measure of angle Z to the nearest tenth. So you're going to be, if you're asked to find the measure of an angle, you're going to use the inverse trig function. I'm going to do, let's see, I'm going to do number 13. Why not? So if I'm finding the measure of angle Z will be my angle of reference. This is the opposite side. This is the hypotenuse, and this is my adjacent side. So the given values are 14 and 10. So I'm going to write, I'm going to use SOHCAHTOA. I have adjacent and I have hypotenuse. I'm going to use ca, which means I'm using cosine. So cosine of Z is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 10 over 14. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and press second cosine, because you want that cosine minus 1, the inverse cosine. So it's cosine minus 1. You're going to input 10 over 14. You don't need to simplify this because it's going to give you the same answer anyways if you simplify that. So cosine minus 1. You're going to input 10 over 14, and you should get... So again, you're inputting 10 over 14. That is the measure angle Z, which is approximately 44 point... What am I rounding to? To the nearest 10th. So 44.4 degrees. Because you're trying to figure out the measure of angle Z, right? So how long is this angle here? It's approximately 44.4 degrees. Okay, and then here we have these problems. I talked about them. You're basically going to have to redraw these figures and label and answer those questions, okay? Let's see. Okay, I want to look at 30 here. So 34 is my angle of reference. This is opposite, this is adjacent, and then this is hypotenuse. So the given values are adjacent and hypotenuse. So if I write SOHCAHTOA, adjacent, hypotenuse, it means you're using the cosine function here. So you write cosine of 34 equals x over 28. You want to multiply both sides by 28 here, so you can get x on the right-hand side alone. So it's 28 cosine of 34, which equals x. I will put 28 cosine of 34 in my calculator. Oops, that's wrong. 28 cosine of 34. Okay, so that is approximately 23 point... What am I rounding to? To the nearest 10th, 23.2. Let me check the key. What number was this? 30. So it is indeed 23.2. Okay? So if you have your unknown in the numerator, you're going to multiply both sides by whatever appears in the denominator. If your unknown is in the denominator, you're going to swap the left-hand side with the unknown in the denominator, like we did, I don't know, was it 4 minutes ago? Yeah. All right. This one, let's see. All right, no, not these. These are repeats. This one, I need you to make sure you read the directions carefully. It says solve each right triangle, round the side measures to the nearest 10th, and the angle measures to the nearest degree, which... This is a fancy way of saying, okay, to the nearest whole number. They say nearest degree because you're dealing with angles, so you want your angle measures to be a whole number. Now, what this is saying is you gotta find all the sides and find all the angles, right? I want to look at number 42. So, okay, you have 32, which is your angle of reference. I'm going to label, that's opposite. This is, that's opposite. This is adjacent, and this is your hypotenuse. Okay, so I need to figure out what this side here is. I'm going to call that x, right? So if I have adjacent and opposite, I'm gonna write SOHCAHTOA. Well, adjacent and opposite, or opposite adjacent, that's using your tangent function. So you write tan of 32, which is equal to x, oh, just kidding, 11 over x, right? Because again, what I'm doing is I'm trying to figure out what the side here is. And since x is in the denominator, I gotta swap these two things. So I have x equals 11 over tangent of 32. So I write 11 divided by tangent of 32 in my calculator. So x is approximately 17.6, right? So this is 17.6. And then I got to figure out what this side here is as well, which I'm going to call, call this y. So I have opposite and hypotenuse. So opposite hypotenuse, that's using the sine function. So I write sine of 32, which is equal to 11 over y. So again, since your unknown is in the denominator, you're going to swap the places between sine of 32 and y. So that's going to give you, I'm going to move it over here, y equals 11 over sine of 32. Put that in the calculator. That's approximately 20 point, round to the nearest tenth. Look at that. So 7 after the decimal is the tenths place, and that 5 will actually bump that 7 to an 8. So it's approximately 20.8. I'm gonna check my key real fast to see if I'm doing things right. Yes. Okay, so we have this being 17.6, and then the side here is 20.8. Okay, and then we have to figure out what measure angle G is, but you know that the sum of the interior angles of a triangle is 180, right? So it's 32 plus 90 plus this, which will give you 180, or you can do 180 minus 90 minus 32, which the measure of angle G is 58 degrees, okay? So you need to make sure that you include that. Okay, I'm going to assume that you can do 43 on your own. Let's take a look at 44, because why am I looking at 44? I don't have angle measures whatsoever besides this 90 degrees, right? So what you have to do is you're gonna have to figure out what measure angle K is, right? So K will be your angle of reference. So I'm gonna label this opposite, and I'm gonna label this hypotenuse. Okay, so circle this. This should be opposite. This is your hypotenuse, and then this should be your adjacent side. Okay. There's a lot to do for number 44. So I have 8 and 22. I'm gonna write SOHCAHTOA. And the measure of angle K is equal to, oh, sorry, no, I don't want to write that. Let me think. So I have opposite over hypotenuse, which means I'm using right? Sine. So I write sine of K is equal to 8 over 22. And since I'm trying to figure out the angle measure, like how long is this angle here, I got to use the inverse trig. So you're really saying sine inverse of 822. So second sine. So you get sine inverse, which is going to be 822 when I input that in. That is approximately 21.3. That is the measure. That's approximately the measure of angle K. That's number 44. Oh, wait. No. This is actually just 21 degrees because you're rounding to the nearest degree here. Rounding to the nearest degree. So if I look at this over here, right? So I have 21.3. That 3 is going to dictate that 1, but since 3 is below 5, 1 is going to remain the same. So really, measure of angle K is approximately 21 degrees. Approximately 21 degrees. Okay, so there's 21 degrees. So then if you have 90, 21, you can figure out what measure angle J is. So I do 180 minus 21 minus 90. That is 69 degrees. Okay? All right. Now we got to figure out how long this side here is. So I'm going to call that X. I'm going to use 21 as my angle of reference. I don't have to relabel anything because if I do, it's going to be a jumbled mess, which I don't want to do. This is going to be your angle of reference. So let's highlight X and this. Or you can do this and this, but you have to use the appropriate trig function. Since I'm highlighting opposite and adjacent, I'm going to use the tangent function. If you used the adjacent and hypotenuse, you got to use the cosine function. But nonetheless, you will get the same answer, okay? So let me see where I can put my work. Again, I'm using opposite over adjacent, so that's tangent. So tangent of 21 is equal to 8 over x. Again, that's opposite over adjacent. X is in the denominator, so swap places with tangent of 21. So x equals 8 over tangent of 21. I put that in my calculator. That should be approximately 20.8. Or am I doing this wrong? 20 point... It says 20.5. Am I doing something wrong here? Tangent of 20... That's 21. That would be... I guess that's close enough, right? Okay, because on the key it says 20.5. I have 20.8. I think the reason why it says 20.5 because I didn't use this exactly. Right? Let me see. If I do 8 divided by a tangent of this number, do I get 20.5? Yep. Okay. Yeah, that's the reason why. If you can see, I use the rounded answer as my I used the rounded answer and inputted that in, which gave me 20.8. But if you give the exact number, if you put that in instead of just 21 degrees, then you will get 20.5, which appears on the key. Okay? All right. You can do 45 on your own. 67 in triangle ABC, angle B is a right angle, and a measure angle A is 40 degrees. Given that AC is 15, what is AB to the nearest 10? So this is just a word problem. All you're going to do is you're going to draw triangle ABC. So when we're drawing a figure, we need to make sure we are writing it clockwise. So A, B, C. Here's the 90-degree angle. Make sure you label everything. It should be the same thing. Once you label everything, it's the trig that we've been doing since the beginning, so that shouldn't be too difficult. I will let you figure out 68 in this problem on your own. I think I've given enough, hints, or not really hints, but giving you like some examples to work with so you can do the rest of the problems on your homework assignment. All right? Okay, that's all for this video.